Elysia Stobbe is here, return guest, national keynote speaker favorite. She has a spotless and enviable reputation in the real estate and mortgage industry with more than $300 million in residential mortgages closed. And she is going to tell us just what we need to know about real estate, investing, making money, running a business, living life, and everything in between. So, Ms. Elysia, glad to have you back after so long.
Thanks, Robert. It's actually Elysia, so I don't know if you want to
Ah,
redo it, but sorry, I should have said that from the
Elysia.
start.
Well, yeah,
It's hard
I
to.
need to like I see the word and it's like my brain wants to say it. So Elysia, like spelled like that other first name, but we don't like that spelling, right? We like the way that it's spelled for you. And I should you're like a third time guest, so I should
Well,
know that. But Elysia
no,
Elysia
it's not
Stobbe, okay, and
perfect.
so
Yeah, it's actually from it's from Elysian Fields. My mom got it out of some baby book.
ooh,
So,
cute. And those are the best kind, right? Where it's like it's simple enough and short enough, but it's not too weird because especially the millennials and the Gen Zs, they've just gone off a cliff. We're like, let's just add an H at the end. Let me put a Y where an I should be. They go crazy, but I like your first name quite a bit. And so when people see and hear your name, Elysia Stobbe, what is happening with you? What have you been up to? What would people think of you when they've looked at your accomplishments lately?
well, hopefully, happiness and joy.
Okay.
That's pretty much the goal these days. Um, but also, obviously, real estate and mortgages and real estate finance is definitely my focus. So I'm grateful to be able to help people every day with that. So keeps me busy, and it's I think a tumultuous time in real estate in the United States to say the most, best, east, worst, whatever.
Yeah.
So that's always interesting too. And it's just interesting too with real estate right now. There are pockets all across the country that are still pretty busy, and then there are those that are slowing down, and it's a great time to buy because it's a good deal. So.
So just be on the lookout for those opportunities and make the best of a situation. Yeah, and it seems like no matter what the decade or the year or the generation, like you can easily find someone complaining about real estate and the ups and downs, but it's like, well, that's your chance for opportunity. And so as far as like your specialty, your area of real estate, it's residential, correct?
Residential, absolutely. And I would say, I love helping first time home buyers and veterans, but also cash flow real estate. I work with a lot of investors. So, helping them find that sweet spot where the numbers make sense, where the property cash flows. So that's definitely a sweet spot for me.
Yeah, and I think about that the concept every now and then, just when you take the emotions out of money and you run the numbers and do the calculations, sometimes it's very counterintuitive, right? Like what feels like a good deal is bad and vice versa. And it's kind of fun when there's someone that knows their stuff, can run the numbers and say, hey, this is something that on the surface it doesn't seem like it would make sense, and maybe that's why this opportunity was available to you, but like here's something that can make sense. And so as far as like those recent real estate adventures in the cash flowing or the investing or the first time home buying, like what's interesting, what's been exciting you?
Well, it's interesting because most real estate deals, not necessarily even investor, fall apart over $2,500. They can't bridge that gap, whether it's a $400,000 deal or an $800,000 deal. It's kind of crazy. And that usually has a lot to do with people's emotions, especially, the seller getting tied up in it and the investor, sorry, or the buyer wanting a good deal. But investors, they really don't have any emotion, right? Hypothetically, that's the best way to operate because you look at the numbers, either it cash flows as it is, or it's going to cash flow if you put down a bigger down payment, or you're going to rehab and flip it, right? So there's definitely a lot of interesting ways to get into real estate. And buying notes also is another one. If you don't want to, be a landlord or deal with tenants and toilets and all the rest of that, you can just hold the notes, right? Hard money notes or um, an opportunity that are out there as well for investment properties, not for primary and second home, but for investment properties. So yeah, so it's interesting. I think just certain pockets. Cleveland's definitely one of them. Birmingham, Alabama is definitely a good pocket. where I spent a lot of time in Jacksonville, Florida, is definitely getting overplayed, but it's also still a growing city, so there's opportunity there. But then, yeah, there's so many places. Just if the
Well,
numbers
very
make
nice.
sense, and that's why it's like, yeah, what are the opportunities? And it's interesting because I have some clients that, for example, live in California, but they invest in Jacksonville and Alabama, and then they're looking at other places because it makes sense. It just makes sense in the property's cash flow, and they can be good landlords and be good stewards of the property and have nice places for people to rent. So because people need that affordability, home affordability is a big problem right now.
Yes. And you're here to help solve that affordability problem. And it's amazing that we don't have to depend on location so much now, right? Where if you have that team in place you can trust and run things, then you can say, well, even though I'm thousands of miles away in California, and you always hear the problem with California is like, well, you kind of have to have like 500,000 and up just to have like one property, or if you have the squatter, they can like stay for 6 months. And it's like, well, if you don't like any of that, well, then you don't have to participate. You can go and find geographically some area where it maybe suits your business plan better. And so is there anything that maybe you wish people knew about real estate? Is there anything that drives you crazy about these people that maybe they jump in without a plan versus someone like you who are like, you're so up to date on what's possible? What do you wish people knew?
Well, it's interesting because there's been a lot of growth in what's called a DSCR loan, which stands for debt service coverage ratio. And basically, if the market rents cover the mortgage for the property, including, its principal, interest, taxes, and insurance, if it covers that, then you get the loan. And it takes a lot of other factors out of it, right? If you actually are able to manage a property, and you do have to have some experience as a landlord, but for the most part, the rates are actually better than traditional conventional loans for investors. So that's one thing that people think they can't get into real estate, and it's like, actually, you can, and it's pretty easy. So that's an amazing tool that we have access to all around the country. And then I think, just like you mentioned, right? If you might feel most comfortable in your backyard, but then the numbers may not work there. So, I mean, what a great excuse to go travel and see somewhere new,
Oh yeah,
right? I'm
of
gonna
course.
buy because you can, right? Because even your second home, you can write off legally tax deduction. I'm not a CPA, full disclaimer, but you can write off 2 visits a year, to a second home. So, I mean, for investment property, if you go check on it, go if there's somewhere that you like or want to spend more time. What a great opportunity to, grow intergenerational wealth. I just think real estate, there's, whether you like the president or not, he's a real estate president. So, he just finally was able to put in his own chairman, even though he actually elected the former chairman. He appointed, sorry, the former chairman of the Federal Reserve. But when there was a change there, and then they were disagreeing, but we'll see what the new one has to do, because the bottom line is, if he's doing a lot of pressure to lower the rates, so the more they lower the rates, the better it is for real estate values, because you have one piece of that puzzle going down, so it enables you to have more buying power. So we'll see how that sorts out.
Yeah, and it's all the more reason to keep an eye on those things. And you've mentioned a little bit here about how just like up to date you stay, right? There's different like programs and then changes in politics, which then leads to changes in the laws. And so like what's your kind of like information digesting news habits? Are you like, do you watch news all the time? Do you watch it like do you watch like the Reddits, or like how do you stay up to date with what you need without driving yourself crazy?
Great question. I try to, obviously I follow news on the interest rates, and mortgage-backed securities, and then also I follow stocks also. So just because there is typically a relationship with, there's a correlation between the stock market and bonds, and therefore interest rates. because even though the Federal Reserve sets the interest rate that the Federal Reserve sets is actually the overnight interest rate, the overnight rate that banks loan money to each other overnight. So they actually don't set mortgage rates, but their influence on what they, the banks loan money to each other overnight obviously affects interest rates. So there's a trickle down effect. So I do follow, a lot of mortgage news, Mortgage Daily, Housing Wire is a great one to follow. And I would say, I try to ingest 30 to 60 minutes a day. Usually in the morning, most of it, and then check in the afternoon, see if anything big changed, how that's affecting things, what the outlook is. And then also just, I talk with a lot of clients. I talk with a lot of realtors still, see what's going on in certain markets and where things are going. So, it's one of the things I geek out on. So I definitely find it probably more interesting than other people. And it helps make me a great resource for my clients, both mortgage clients and then coaching clients alike.
Well, it's good to have that fulfillment, right? Where someone might be bored to tears and you're like, oh no, the overnight interest rate, and it's something that you can geek out on. So you're in the right profession, right? Some people geek out over model trains or coin collecting, but you're like, ooh, what's that interest rate today? Or what are the banks lending at? And so when someone comes to you, like, what's the conversation usually like? I know you said there's like first time home buyers or there's investors, but are they like saying like, well, I've got this amount of money saved up, or do they know what kind of property they want to buy? Is it a mix? Just like, what are people coming to you with?
Yeah, great question. So it is typically a mix. So the first time home buyers really need a lot of hand holding, which, that was the first book I wrote, How to Get Approved for the Best Mortgage Without Sticking a Fork in Your Eye. So I do love helping the first time home buyers because I do believe it is the first step to intergenerational wealth. So there's that. I mean, I do think you need a combination of assets. But I think, obviously I believe in real estate because I, own a fair amount myself. But so those conversations are great. I love helping people understand the whole process because it is a process for sure. And then also, the other part of it is I love working with investors because that's really numbers. And then we can kind of get into the nitty gritty, right? There's not so much emotion there, but more numbers, right? Where the first time home buyer, the most important thing is, okay, can you afford this payment? And then a lot of times it's like, how does that new mortgage payment equate to your rent? And does that make sense? Right? For where, are you going to be able to work from home remotely or whatever for the next few years? Or are you not in that flexible position and you might get transferred? So maybe it's not a good fit, but there's that. And then a lot of times I definitely enjoy working with, like I mentioned, the investors and then also veterans. So, but I would say it's definitely a fun mix. And, one of the things that definitely has changed with me, even more so, I would say in the past decade, is just having fun with people. Because it is a very serious transaction and I don't want to make light of the transaction. But I think when I first got into this 23 years ago, I thought I really had to be like a stuffy banker and I wasn't happy doing that. And you can still have a lot of sense of humor. The other thing that also comes into play, especially right now with the people who have a lot of equity locked in their home, maybe they bought in like 2020, 2019, 2020, 2021 when the rates were lower. And now they need some cash is just running those numbers. So again, talking about geeking out, I had a realtor, send me a message actually just before, like an hour ago. So just before I got on with you. And they are trying to figure out with their client. And of course, we'll get the client on the line and run the numbers. Do they want to do a cash out refi to pull out some of that equity? Or would it be better to keep their current note and then do a home equity line of credit? So we would have to figure out what the rate would be on the home equity line of credit, what their current rate is, and what the blended rate really would be, or would it make sense for them to just do cash out the whole thing instead of having a first and second? So that's definitely some numbers geek stuff. And I feel very useful when I'm able to help people like that. So, or I had a client yesterday. Yeah, good.
Oh, it's good to be of use, right? It's it's a weird feeling, right? It's like you think that being selfish is better, but in real life, like helping out others it just gives you a way better sustaining feeling.
Definitely. I love to help others because it is, you're right. It's a more sustainable feeling. And, I'm a big Tony Robbins fan. So he believes that if you're serving others, you can't be unhappy, right? During that mental process, whether it's whatever, Feed America I'm volunteering for, or, um, you know, anything. It's just if you're focused on something else besides yourself, it's pretty easy to feel good about what's happening. Whereas if you focus on, I don't have this, or I don't have that, or I didn't get this done today, or whatever the case may be, like that's not helping you. So,
Yeah, and then what you focus on grows, so you just get more of that negativity. And so if you want more of the good, then hang on to the what percentage of good you have and focus on having more of that, of course.
yeah, where focus goes, energy flows.
Heck yeah, 100%, a million percent. And so you're mentioning about this idea of having fun, and I really enjoy like it's like attorneys and realtors that have like the larger than life personality, right? And it's like every town has like there's like the bus benches are on the bus stops, right? And there's always, and the realtors especially, there's like the arms crossed to the side, and it's like it's just such a silly, yeah, it's just such a like an expected thing. But it seems like it's only some amount of realtors do that, right? So many of them you never hear about them, you don't know their name, don't know their photo, but then there's the ones that are like kind of like they get more attention. But it's like it seems like you don't have to do that, right? You don't have to go on the news like you have, or you don't have to put out the books, you don't have to kind of do the even like this podcast, right? You didn't have to. And so like what do you think about all that, like just the more like long-term publicity to maybe make it make have the inflow of people coming to you better? Or like what's your motivation for the publicity that maybe is not required but you enjoy doing?
Well, I think it all stems from I do enjoy what I do, so why wouldn't I want to help more people, meet more people, be able to serve more people? And I just think, yeah, when you're in it for the right reasons, um, which is some sort of fulfillment, right? We all need a paycheck, and we all need to get paid, and there's all that, and there's so many ways that you can get paid, and these days even more. There's so many different things you can do, right? You can
Yeah.
have a podcast, you can do audiobooks, you can do all the rest of it, which is awesome because here we are conversing, and we do two totally different things, and right, we're helping each other right now. So yeah, I just think it's so fascinating too, all the different opportunities there are right now in our time, right, for just how you can do whatever. So so many opportunities.
And the kids these days will never understand just the what's possible now in minutes, seconds. So used to take days, right? You'd have a computer, it'd take 10 minutes to turn on, wasn't even hooked up to anything. And then meanwhile, I was driving this morning, and I had like I like to have like YouTube's playing on my phone, which that's another technological innovation. But I just YouTube's were playing, and they were talking about how when like BlackBerry phones became big, they were like, hey, you can check your email on your phone, and you couldn't do anything else, couldn't even text, but you could check your email. And like just that was such a huge leap. And now we take these things for granted. So you're saying that, well, imagine how someone 30, 40 years ago at your age now would feel about all the opportunities. Why wouldn't you take advantage of the YouTube, social media, podcasting, LinkedIn, and all those other things? And so if someone was like hesitating about that, or if someone was a young buck in real estate, and a lot of the Gen Zs, they're like afraid to even look away from their phones, and if they say, oh, Alicia's so outgoing and has the spunk and personality, I wish I had that. Like I know you were like an army kid, so that kind of toughens you up quickly, but like were you ever shy, or did you have to develop these skills?
Oh yeah, I was super shy, super super shy kid when I was little, and also I was smaller than most of the kids because I was a little younger compared to the rest of the kids in my grade in kindergarten and first grade and all that. So I used to get picked on, and I used to not like want to go on the school bus, and when the bus would come, to pick us up, I would hide in the bushes and pretend I missed the bus because they used to pick on me. So yeah. So and I would say I was, I don't want to say like most kids in high school, but in high school I was definitely awkward. Um and then, there was college, and I think my first job was in radio sales. So I wasn't a good networker, like all of that. And then when I got into mortgages as my second career, I took business networking international. So I learned a lot of, you have to speak every week at those weekly meetings. And so I learned a lot through there, and then a lot through the Tony Robbins environment. And then when I had my first book launch, I had done some work in radio, but radio's faceless. At least it was then, right? It's not now, right? Because they have the cameras in the studios, so it's definitely not faceless. But I think when I started my first book tour and I had to be on television and speak a lot, I did a lot of work to, just become comfortable with that, because I definitely would get nervous, and you don't want to say the right thing. And then, you have like 3 minutes and that's it. And I will say one of the things that was always helpful is they were always kind to me whenever I did interviews. And I don't know if I thought it was going to be like slightly on the spot or anything, but I never got that vibe. So that worked out. But I think, it's a long journey of also just becoming comfortable with yourself. And then that's why it's like, if there's that young buck out there, go do it, man. Go be you, because there's only one you. And so trying to copy somebody else is a compliment to that somebody else for sure, but you'll never be able to be that somebody else because you're you. So if you just focus on being the best you can be, and how you can add value to your clients, whatever the profession is, right? Real estate, for sure, you want to add value. And I think also have patience and allow for grace, because, it'll come through when you least expect it. And, sometimes when you most expect it, it comes through. Who knows? So, but it's always there for sure.
Well, heck yeah. I admire the self-awareness. And you're saying that sometimes you have to push through that messy middle. And a lot of us have gone through that, right? The awkwardness of public speaking, and everyone's a beginner at some point, but it's a skill that can be developed. So put in the reps and learn what you need to, and get in the orbit of other people who are where you want to be. And as you say, not to copy, just to be in proximity and have those people who maybe understands how difficult it was for them coming up, so that way they can support you. And then when it's your turn to help the others, then you can be like what you're doing as far as the educating and just being a source for others. And so we've been kind of jumping around all sorts of different fun, interesting subjects, right? There's real estate, there's believing in yourself and your own self-development. But in these final few minutes of our conversation, do you think there might be a missing question that I should be asking you? I just don't know to ask you.
A missing question. Maybe. Goodness, I don't know. You asked so many good questions. I think maybe a missing question would be, how to find calm in the storm.
Ooh, how do you?
Because I just feel like, right? I just feel like on a daily basis, we're bombarded these days with so many negative this and negative that. And then, the economy's, to say it's unstable would be an understatement, right?
Yeah.
So I think we take a lot of things for granted. And it's just like we were talking about, when you're serving somebody else, you can't be miserable yourself. But also, I just feel like these days, how many of us are really starving? Okay, there's definitely a part of the population that is. And there's a lot of outlets and support for that part of the population that is suffering, unfortunately. But there's resources out there. And I just think on average, we take so many things for granted besides our health. But even if somebody doesn't have a roof over their heads, they're usually not starving these days. Thank goodness.
Right. Yeah.
And I think just counting our blessings and focusing on what we have right now and being present here helps defray a lot, right? Of what you could get stuck in.
Oh yeah, because it seems like the negativity is built in, right? Your brain has been evolutionary trained for millions of years to look for the danger and to be miserable. Because in caveman times, if you weren't miserable, then you'd say, "Oh, I'm just going to kick back and I don't need to go and catch the fish. I don't need to go and kill the bear or start the fire." But now we've hopefully grown out of that, and so it's time for a different way of thinking, and it might not be easy, but it's like retraining, and it still sticks with me. The very first time we met, you said that it was all about gratitude, and I still get all these like principles and concepts from you today, and so it's definitely worth reminding ourselves and keeping this in the forefront of our mind, just how important some of these simple concepts are for us, right? Optimism, gratitude, problem solving, being kind to others, and everything else that goes with that. So if somebody says, I was so informed and inspired by what Elysia had to say today about real estate and about life, and I want to check out her books, her website, etc., where should they go? What are some next steps?
Thanks. So definitely people can go to Elysia Stobbe Inc. So ELYSIA STOBBEINC.com. And there's also Elysia Stobbe Books. So ELYSIA and that'll be the books. So yeah, you can book me to speak. There's all kinds of opportunities there and coaching as well. So
very cool. And then you also have a healing business as well, right?
Yeah, so it's interesting. I was recently, well, I shouldn't even say recently, it's probably been over a year and a half now. I was exposed to balancing harmonics. So it's quite fascinating. And it's one of those things where you're like, oh, that's, woo woo, that's out there. But it's actually not. It's the same science that NASA used to monitor the astronauts in space. So you can actually do amazing things remotely for healing health and balancing. And actually, Mayo Clinic is starting trials on that right now. And but there's actually been all sorts of information available for over a decade now, for sure, with proven results. So it's fascinating. Yeah, I mean, it's just amazing how you can heal people remotely. I mean, it's basically energy. So if you think about it, right, cell phone, right? So this is going all day long. This is bad energy for us, right? Forget the fact that you get sucked into all the social media drama, or maybe you choose not to, which would be awesome. But it's always available. But also, the electromagnetic frequencies that come from the phone are not good, but you actually, just the way there are bad frequencies that can come through, you actually can transmit good frequencies that actually align your body and allow it to heal itself, and can aid in the healing. So yeah, I've been very fortunate to help a few people. Actually was able to pull a kid out of a coma. So that was a big, amazing thing last year. So he'd been in a coma for 30 days and we started working on him, and he came out. He was moving his hands and fingers within 24 hours, opened his eyes within 48 hours, came off the ventilators within like 3 days, and fully awake within, I think it was like 5 to 7. So he's made an amazing recovery. One of those weird just blood diseases that they really didn't know existed. So kind of crazy. And then actually last night I was helping somebody who's been in the hospital for 2 weeks, and getting ready to put in a full-time trach. She has pneumonia, and I started working on her last night, and all of a sudden she's breathing on her own. So it's pretty amazing when you're open to the possibilities, what can happen for health-wise. And if you think about it, why not? I mean, there's so many amazing progress in health these days. It's like, it's a bonanza, right? You just get to
Oh
pick.
yeah.
Do you want traditional? Do you want, holistic? What's in the middle? So it's fascinating to me, and I love to help people. So
it connects with all of it, right? The helping people with real estate
yeah.
and with their health. And so, like, is this a service you provide, or is there a website, or how does someone find out more about that?
Yeah, I would say if people just want to message me directly, either on LinkedIn or Facebook, that's probably the best way to get an appointment, and I can do a scan and see, and if there's anything I can do to help. Yeah, I would love to
super
serve
great.
more people.
Wonderful. Don't we all? But it seems like it doesn't happen by accident, right? Like you mentioned at the beginning, like even if all you're doing is volunteering at the soup kitchen, you don't fall into that. You have to choose to say, well, where's the soup kitchen, and take time out of my day and how to do it and show up. So it's important to look into and put our focus and spend time on some of these activities that they don't make a lot of selfish sense, right? It's like it helps others, it's long term, and it's so easy to make excuses and say, oh well, I need to do this other thing for myself instead. Well, yeah, but maybe that's why you're so miserable, because you've been too optimized and too thinking about yourself. Maybe it's time to think about how you can help others, which seems like has been a theme in our conversation today. And so if you want to take some of those first steps and contact Elysia Stobbe, you can find her on LinkedIn and Facebook, as she said. First name Elysia, last name Stobbe. And we said that's ElysiaStobbeInc.com is the main website, ElysiaStobbeBooks.com. That way you can check out how to get approved for the best mortgage without sticking a fork in your eye. There's the Mortgage Loan Officer book. There's the 52 Weekly Habits You Can Master, Journey to Success. And so wherever your path, your lane is, check out those books, check out Elysia's website. But before I let you go, Elysia, it's time for the scary part of the show, where I try to stump you. I try to put you on the spot by asking about a fun or interesting quote or lesson that has served you. So what comes to mind as far as a fun or interesting quote or lesson?
Ooh, that's a good one. I'm going to go with Albert Einstein. In the middle of difficulty lies opportunity.
I like it. That explains a lot about real estate, doesn't it? Very good.
Well, it explains a lot about life, doesn't it, Robert?
True. Yeah. It is what you make it. You think about what's good about this, and many times it's a learning opportunity or a chance to do something different and better. And so if you want to have that conversation about real estate or healing or mindset or business, find Elysia Stobbe on LinkedIn or ElysiaStobbeInc.com. It's been such a blast having you for the third time now. Thanks for being here, Miss Elysia.
Thank you so much for your time, Robert. I appreciate it very much.